So the hidden rules of middle school science. We've got 8 hidden rules that we're going to go over the course of this hour. Hidden rule number 1, don't waste your talent. And you will learn that this is probably my biggest pet peeve. So if you feel like I'm calling you out on things, or if I'm constantly singling you out, it's probably because I feel like you're wasting your talent. They typically say that the people that you're most like you don't get along with. That's probably the reason that this was my pet peeve. When I was a student, I did an awful lot of messing around. I didn't take school very seriously. And as I got through school, as I got older, I realized how important it was. And I realized that when you do waste your talent, it makes things that much harder later on in life. So this is one of my biggest pet peeves. If you are choosing to be a distraction or a disruption to classmates, I will probably call you out on it. There will probably be a number of times where you feel like I'm singling you out. And it's probably because I feel like you're wasting your talent. And you're being a distraction to others because you are wasting your talent. Okay? So there may be times that you get bored in class because you're ahead, because the subject comes easy. It could be any number of reasons. That does not give you permission to be a nuisance in class. Please make sure you're diligent. Please make sure you're working hard. And if something does come easy to you, probably the best thing for you to do is to help out your partner. Help out your lab partner. You'll have partners that you work with in this class. After you get your assigned seats, that person that's sitting next to you will be your lab partner. And that individual may need some help on some things that come easy to you. Instead of wasting your talent in being a distraction, use your talent to help others. Hidden rule number 2, problem solve. So if you find yourself constantly asking me for paper, pencils, or other materials that you need for class, you may find that I become very short with you. Meaning that I might just be like, okay, and that's all I say. Or you come up to me and say, Mr. Winsor, I don't have a pencil, and I say, maybe you should probably find one. Or something along those lines. So as middle schoolers, it's not like elementary school was when you were in elementary school last year. Okay? We expect you to be self-sufficient. We expect you to become more independent. So in elementary school, when you went up to the teacher and you're like, Mrs. Hines, I don't have a paper or pencil. She gave you a big hug, right? She's like, oh, I love you so much. And she gave you a big hug. And she said, I've got all that stuff right over here. And she handed you a pencil. And then she got back inside of her pencil box and she was like, here's 4 more pencils. And she gave you another hug. And she said, now go back to your seat and work. I guarantee in middle school, we aren't going to be quite like that. We're trying to transition you guys from elementary school, where you aren't quite as independent, into high school where you're expected to be completely independent. Alright, so please be aware that it's not that we're mean or we're angry or grumpy people. We just aren't elementary teachers, and we're trying to teach you to become more self-sustaining. Alright? The next part of this hidden rule is, if you don't have those materials, you need to find those materials. Meaning that when you're in the hallway, the first place that you should look, when you know you're going to class and you don't have a pencil in your hand, is your locker. The first place that you need to look is your locker. The second place, and this is kind of a hidden secret as well, the second place that you should always look, because there's always pencils in this place, is the hallway floor. There are always pencils on the hallway floor. Always look. And then, here's the key to this, don't get distracted when you see a pencil. You go for that thing, because I guarantee somebody else is looking for it. It's like a treasure hunt. You see a pencil, you get it. No, not fight to the death. Just go get it. Go find the pencil and grab it. All right? The third place that you will look for a pencil and or pen or writing utensil if you do not have one is probably your fellow classmates. Just ask around. Ask around. Say, hey, I don't have a pencil for Mr. Windsor's class. Do you have one? And if you then come to me and you still have not found one, and you're like, Mr. Winsor, I looked in my locker. I looked on the floor to the hallway. I looked, or I asked other people in the hallway if they had a pencil I could borrow for the hour, and I did not get a pencil, or I did not find paper. I guarantee I will be a lot more forgiving and a lot more willing to give you a pencil or paper or other materials because of the work that you put in to try to find one. All right? Hidden rule number 3. Follow directions that are given to you from the beginning of the school year. So in elementary school, typically if you felt like you didn't know something, you always went back to the teacher, and the teacher always did what? Helped you, always reminded you, always was like, oh, but remember we did this as one of our rules, or remember this is one of the expectations. In middle school, we aren't necessarily going to always hold your hand and bring you back to those expectations or those rules. Okay? So we expect that you act like a middle schooler by becoming more independent. And part of that becoming more independent is knowing some of the rules or expectations that you were given at the beginning of the school year. Okay, so we think that directions that you were given at the beginning of the school year are just as important at the beginning of the school year as they are at the end of the school year. So rules or procedures or expectations that are given to you at the beginning of the school year, they are just as important now as they are at the end of the year. Please make sure that you follow them. My expectations, they are visible up on the front board. My expectations right up there are pretty easy. I only have 7 of them. Okay. Hidden rule number 4. Write down things that you need to remember in your planner, and make sure that you take that planner to every single class. If you're feeling unorganized, or you're constantly misplacing or forgetting things, you aren't going to be successful in the middle school. Part of middle school is making sure that you're organized, and you have to do that independently. Make sure that you write down any assignments. Make sure that you write down your agendas. As you come into each class, many teachers have an agenda posted for the day. Write down that agenda. And as you finish things in the class, mark them off or cross them out. That tells you that that is complete. It's nothing I really have to come back to. Maybe a teacher goes over some material as far as a lesson goes, and there's a few things on it that you're not exactly sure about. It may be important to put a small circle around that so that you know you need to come back and at least revisit any notes that were taken or talk to the teacher about what exactly they meant. If you have any homework, make sure that you circle that material in your agenda and make it large and easily identifiable. That way then at the end of the day when you're packing up your bag and you're going through your locker, you can just simply look at your planner, you can see the things that are circled, and you can grab those things and put them inside your backpack before you head to the bus. Hidden rule number 5, be on task. So if you're being corrected or distracting others, or if you've noticed that everyone around you has something to do and they're working diligently, but you're not sure what you're supposed to be doing, you're probably off task. So in middle school, we feel that you need to be responsible for your education. The things that you learn are up to you. When you're off task, you're not learning, and when you're distracting others, you're not learning, and you're also interrupting the other individuals' learning. If you're unsure of what to do inside of the class, talk to the teacher. The teachers are here to help. Or ask a neighbor. That comes back to talking about problem solving. And make sure that when you're asking a neighbor what to do, you're asking in a manner that is not distracting to others. If you tap your neighbor on the shoulder and you say, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing right now, and they shrug their shoulders, you need to understand that I should probably go someplace else to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. For example, the teacher. For you to get louder and ask the person 3 or 4 or 5 times over and over again what you're supposed to be working on, that's going to be a distraction to other people around you. And then the important thing here is, when you understand what you need to do, get right to work. Hidden rule number 6. Finishing early does not mean that you have time to mess around. It's great that you may be able to finish assignments early. Maybe inside of science class, you understand a lot of the concepts. Maybe they come easy to you. If you're finishing assignments early, always double check the work. Make sure that you understand, or that you have put down the answers that you wanted to put down. Make sure that you didn't make any simple mistakes. Always feel free to work ahead or read ahead. It's important for you to realize what classes you're successful in and which ones you excel in. In those classes that you excel in and you're constantly ahead in, you may want to have extra materials with you inside of the class. So for example, if science is a class that you're really good in, you may want to bring extra math assignments that maybe you had to take home for homework because you already had that class. Don't expect to have time to work on other materials, but if you find yourself with 20 minutes left to go in the end of the hour, and you don't have anything else to do, maybe that's an opportunity for you to get yourself a little bit ahead inside of math class or any other class. Or maybe it's just that you need to have some type of reading material with you. Always make sure that you check with the teacher before you begin assignments outside from their class. You need to be okay with the teacher saying no. Because if it was me as a teacher and you're 20 minutes ahead in my class, and you were to come up to me and say, Mr. Winsor, I have some math homework that I have to work on, and I was to go to the grade book and I was to see in the grade book that you were missing 2 science assignments, I might tell you, no, you need to go back and work on some of those old science assignments. So be prepared for the teacher to say, no, there's other things for my class that are important in my classroom for you to work on. Hidden rule number 7, don't blame others. And this one might not necessarily be a huge hidden rule. It's maybe just something that we as a middle school staff tend to look for individuals that are growing up. And part of growing up is admitting that we all make mistakes. So if you find yourself looking for excuses or trying to find someone else to point the finger at, you're probably the problem. Make sure that you take responsibility for your actions. We all make mistakes. It's better to admit that you made a mistake and move on than find excuses or others to blame. Admit the mistake, learn from the mistake, and move on. Now that's not to say that we probably aren't going to laugh about it a little bit, and it's important for you to be able to laugh at yourself in mistakes that you've made. Always understand that learning is the important thing there. Laugh about it, and move on and learn from that mistake. Finally, hidden rule number 8, don't assume, always ask. If you find yourself wrong often, then you may be assuming too much. Don't be afraid to ask teachers for help. We're here to help. You need to allow us to help you. So if you're finding where you're making a lot of mistakes on homework assignments or other assignments in class, you may be assuming some things that are not true. You may have some misconceptions regarding the content or the material that's being covered in class. Seek out the teacher and ask for help. And also understand that your classmates are not always the best answer. Sometimes misconceptions can be spread among classmates. So it's important to verify answers with teachers.